Okay guys, today we are going to look at a SQL problem, not a DS or algo problem. So in a typical SQL problem, what happens is that you are given a bunch of tables as input, and based on certain criteria, you have to write a um, SQL statement which should give out this as an output, basically. And that's a typical SQL problem is. So let's look at this particular problem. The title of the problem is Department Top 3 Salaries. So let me elaborate on it by giving you a walkthrough on input and output. So input is given two tables, employee table and a department table. Employee table has 4 columns: ID, name, salary, department ID. And so you have folks who are working in different departments, department 1 and department 2. And then you have a department table which says what is department ID 1, which is IT, department ID 2, which is sales, right? And their salaries are also mentioned in this table. And the SQL statement, the SQL query which you have to give as the solution to this problem should give out this output. And what is this output? The output is a department, employee, and their salary. But the filtering criteria is that you have to give out a list of employees who are earning the top 3 salaries department-wise. So in IT department, how many people are earning the top 3 salaries? So if we quickly look at the IT department, we have 85,000. Then we have 90,000, then 69,000, 85,000, 70,000. So the top 3 salaries are going to be 90,000, 85,000, and 70,000. 69,000 is the 4th high salary, but then that is not in the top 3, right? So you have to give out these 4 guys in department ID 1, basically. We have to give Joe as an output. We have to include Max. We have to include Randy and Will, basically. That you can see Max, Randy, Joe, and Will are included. And if you go to sales department, there are only 2 entries over here, so automatically they both will get counted, basically. To solve this problem, what we're going to do is we're going to solve this in 2 steps. So step 1 is going to be, we will look at how to get, we'll forget about the departments, we will look at how to get employees with top 3 salaries, right? And then step 2 would be include department IDs, include departments, right? So most of the solution will focus on this, because once we have solved this, including department in the solution is going to be trivial, basically. So let's start with this, okay? Now, let's look at this problem. Let's try and solve this problem by using the intuition, basically. Which will tell you like a default way of thinking which will come in your mind to solve this problem. And default way of thinking in your mind which will come to your mind to solve this problem will be on the basis of limits. Because then in SQL there's something called as limits, where you can limit the number of rows, and you might be thinking that there must be some way we can solve this with limits. So let's try and solve this problem with limits first, right? So if I want to pick out the top 3 salaries out of this thing, what we will have to do? So what I've done is I've in parallel created a similar employee table with more easier to pronounce salaries and more easier to pronounce names, basically. So I put the names as A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then I put the salaries as 7, 6, 6, 6. You can see there is a repetition over here, and 3, 2, 1, right? And now let's try and find out all the employees who are earning the top 3 salaries in this table. So what are the top 3 salaries? The top 3 salaries are going to be 7, 6, and 3. These are the top 3 salaries, right? And if we want to get all the employees who are earning these top 3 salaries, what we would like to do is we would like to do select, I can say name and salary. Then I would say from, sorry, let me just remove this. So the top 3 salaries are 7, 6, and 3. And I will select it from employee table, right? And my where condition will be where, right? My where condition will be salary is greater than or equal to 3. If I'm able to say this, right, then my problem is solved, because I will get the list of employees who are earning the top 3 salaries. Now the question is, how do we get 3? Because this is there's a static data, and we would like to actually fetch it from there. So how do we get this 3? because we're trying to solve this problem using limits, right? So I'm just going to go with the limit solution. So let me just first do this, right? Let's just get the list of top 3 salaries first. So what we want to do is select salary from from employee, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to do order by uh, salary, and I'm going to put descending. I'm going to put descending, and then I'm going to put limit 3, right? Now if I do this, right, let's see what will happen. If I do this, what we will get is we'll first order the salaries by descending order and then get the top 3. In that case, we'll get just 7, 6 and 6, but we don't want 6, we want actually up till 3, right? So the reason why we are getting this is because we have not looked at unique salary values. So what I will have to do is I will have to put a distinct here, a distinct on salary, sorry, a distinct on salary will give me the top 3. Now what will happen is that the distinct will give me 7, 6, 3, 2, 1, and then the top 3 will give me 3 basically. Now but what we want is 3, we want to replace this, right? So what if I do this? I put here and I say select on this. So I'm using this as a nested query, and I put select min of the value which I'm getting out of here, salary, from this table, this nested table basically. Select min of salary from this nested table, and when I do this, then I will get the output as 3 out of this, and this I can put over here, right? So I remove 3 and I can just put this here. This SQL will give you the list of people who are earning the top 3 salaries from the employees table. Now this is a sufficiently complex way of solving this problem, right? There such kind of a SQL where you are looking for top 3 salaries or top 3 values basically in a particular table. There is one very nice little trick which you can use, and I'm going to talk about that trick now, right? So this is one way to solve this problem. Let's try and solve it from another way possible. So let me just rub this first. Okay, so this particular trick you can use in many what you call in many interviews where where you have to write SQL and talks about top 3 or bottom 3 or anything like that basically, right? So you can use this trick. So before talking about the trick, right, so this is the trick which I'm going to talk about now. Before I talk about the trick, let me quickly tell you the thought process behind the trick. So the thought process behind the trick is that suppose you are trying to find the top salary. Let's first look at, suppose you're trying to find the top salary, right? Finding top is much easier because then you can just do max of salary, right? But we are not going to use this max of salary because, we are obviously going to talk about the top salary and then top 2 and then top 3, and you don't have like a function called top 3 over here. Hence, max salary only works at top salary. Hence, we're not going to use this and try and figure out another way basically. So if you're looking at the top salary, right? So what is the top salary in this data set? The top salary is 7, right? Now if I ask you to compare, now remember this is the important point in the trick. If I ask you to compare the value 7 with all the other values in the salary column, and I ask you to count number of times, remember number of times 7 is less than salary, right? Just replace this salary with all the values in here and just count the number of times 7 is less than salary. This count is going to be 0 because 7 is the highest salary. It's strictly less than, it is not equal to. So 7 less than 7, not 0. The count is still 0. Then 7 less than 6, no. 7 less than 6, no. And so on, the count will become 0. So that is about top salary, right? Now just repeat this operation for the top, or let me say second top salary. So second from the top, right? If I ask you to repeat this salary, this operation basically, the second top salary is what? 6, right? And if I ask you to again get a count of number of times 6 is less than salary. Let's do this, right? Now this is where the interesting part comes. See, the count which you will get is going to be 1. Because there's the highest salary is 7 over here, and 6 is less than 7, the count will become 1. But for the rest of the column, for the rest of the rows, the count will remain 1, and it will not increment basically. So the count will become 1, right? So the count will become 1, right? But remember, what if 7 was repeated over here, right? If 7 was repeated, then your count will be more than 1. So what we would like to do is count the number of times 6 is less than salary, but when you're counting this, put a distinct on this basically. So count for distinct value of such rows which you find, where 6 is less than. So 6 could be less than 7, and if there is another 7, you could again find 6 is less than 7. The count becomes 2, but you're going to, because you're just going to do a distinct on this value 6, you're just going to get 1, right? So I will show you exactly how this works in a SQL, right? So count is 1. Now similarly, if you do a third top salary, right? The third top salary is 3, right? And when I ask you to do the similar operation, here you will find the count is equals to actually 2, because remember, it's the count is getting counted for distinct values, right? So when you compare 3 over here, 3 is less than 7, 1, the count increments. 3 is less than 6, the count increments. But then 3 is less than here and here, but these is get cancelled out in the distinct operation basically. So the count will remain 2 only, and then for rest of the rows, the count will not increment. Hence the count will remain 2 basically. So how do we actually compare this particular value, the salaries value, with all the other salary values? When you're comparing the same column with same column, can be done in 2 ways. Okay, so let's talk about how this can be done in 2 ways. So the comparison can be done in 2 ways basically. What are the 2 ways? One way is nested query, and the second is join. Okay, so let me show you both the queries. So first, let's look at the nested query. So what you can do is you can do this: select name, comma, salary, right? Where, sorry, not where, from employee, where. So we are doing the top 3 salaries, right? Top 3. That is our statement. Where, remember, for the top third, the count was 2. And so what we're going to do is going to say where 3 is greater than, and we are going to compute that count. So how do we compute that count? Where 3 is greater than, this is the nested query, right? Select count of, remember this is the important point, distinct. I'm putting a distinct on salary. This is the count which we're getting. Where are we getting it from? From employee. We're getting it from the employee table, right? I'm going to call this as E1, and I'm going to call this as E2, right? Now here is the important clause where E1 dot salary, so the outside salary, is less than E2 dot salary. So now this E1 is going to get compared with all the other salaries again. So because this is a nested query, and I close this, right? Now what will happen? What will happen is, this is the nested solution basically. What will happen is that for every salary, so for every salary, say 7, right? When 7 goes inside this nested query, 7 gets compared to all the other salaries and how many times it is less, and then a distinct on that. The count will become 0, and because 0 is less than 3, because 3 has to be greater than whatever is here, hence this particular row will get selected in this output, right? And then similarly, when the second row comes up, where the value will become 6, so E1 dot salary becomes 6 as compared to all of them, and a count is computed for that, then the count will come out to be 1 basically, because 6 will be less than 7. For the rest of them, it will not, it will be 0. And remember, if there are repetitions, it is a distinct on the salary count, right? So it will come as 1, the count will come as 1, 1 is less than 3, and hence this particular row will be selected. Similarly, this row will be selected. Similarly, this row will be selected. Now let's look at the third one. So when the 3 comes in, what will happen is, again, the even will be at this particular location, right? And then even.salary will be 3. 3 will get compared because of this nested query. 3 will get compared with every other salary in this. 3 will be less than this. 3 will be less than these 3, but because of this distinct, these 3 will become 1. So 1, the count will be here 1, and then for these 3, the count will be 2, like 1 plus 1, and for rest of the thing it will be 0. And 2 is still less than 3, hence this will get selected, right? But these 2 rows are not going to get selected. And that is the logic behind putting a nested query to get the top 3 salary and their corresponding employees. Okay. Now, this particular solution was a nested query. Let's try and solve this using a join query. So let me just remove this. Let's try and do it with a join query, right? So let's put it this way. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to solve this problem with a join query. So I'm going to do select name comma salary from employee E1, and then I'm going to say employee E2. So when I'm putting a comma, automatically this table is getting joined with its own self, right? And what I'm going to do is where E1 dot salary is less than E2 dot salary. So what I've done is I put where E1 dot salary is less than E2 dot salary. So remember, E1 and E2, they are getting kind of cross product. So basically this table is getting joined with its own self, and I'm looking at only those rows where E1 dot salary is less than E2 dot salary, right? Now what I will do is I will just put a group by, and I'm gonna group it by with E1 dot salary. Sorry, not salary. I'm gonna group it by E1 dot name, comma E1 dot salary. This will be the group by clause because there'll be multiple such occasions. When you take a cross product of this with this, you will get 7 cross 7, 49 rows basically, right? So out of which I'm going to group by on that particular table, and then I'm going to put a having clause, having count greater than, having count not greater than, less than 3. And that's it. Having count less than 3. Just for clarity's sake, E1 dot name, and this will be E1 dot salary. Because that's what I've grouped by. So I cannot select anything outside these. So I'm selecting the E1 dot name and E1 dot salary from employee 1 and employee 2. And so this particular nested query tries to achieve, this particular join query tries to achieve exactly. So this is the join query. This join query tries to achieve exactly what we were trying to achieve in the nested query. And this is a neat little trick which you can use to always solve the problems of top 3. And this comes up in rather many interview questions. So it is always good to know this trick. I hope that clears the join and the nested query trick for the top n kind of solutions or bottom n kind of solutions. So after we have discussed the trick, now let's quickly look at how we can solve this problem using this trick. So let me just erase this. And let's try and write the SQL statement which will give us this output. Okay, so I will use the nested way of doing it. So let's do it this way. So obviously we want to have department, employee, and salary. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start like this. I'm going to say select. So I'm going to say what will happen is that I will have So let me just put from. So I will have the employee table. Let's call it E1. And then I'm gonna have this join um, the department table. So let's call it D, D, and the join condition is going to be um, E1 dot department ID is equals to D dot ID. Okay, so that is the join condition. And then let's write the select part. So what we want is, first column is department, and then it is the name. So we will say D dot name as department, right? Because that's the name of the column. And then E1 dot name, that is the name of the employee, and that will be as employee, right? And then the last one, let me write it over here, that will be E1 dot salary as salary, right? So that does the select part, then the from part, and then the on part, which is the join with the department ID, and then the third, the where condition is going to be where 3 is greater than, and this is the nested part. So here what we will do is we'll put select, remember the count of distinct of salary, right, from employee table. Let's call it E2. Why? That's why, because we have E1 over here, then this is E2. Now the important condition, where the first thing is that we have to match the department. So we want to say um, E1. So we don't want to match anything other than the department where the department ID is the same. So we want to say E1 dot department ID is same as E2 dot department ID. So department ID matches. We're putting this condition because we want department wise, right? Sorry, where this is true, and the continuation of where clause, E1 dot salary is less than E2 dot salary, right? So this is the trick where I'm getting the top 3, and then I'm getting it department wise because I'm comparing the department also. And then I have the join with D department, which is on this department ID, and hence I'm able to get the department, the name, as well as the salary. And that pretty much will give you this output, right? I hope this clears up this problem, the Leetcode 185 department top 3 salaries. Guys, I would like to request you for one thing, and that is in the comments, do mention problems which are complicated and you are not able to really get your head wrapped around, how to solve them, or what is even if you know the solution, you find it very difficult. Many times the thought process is kind of difficult to grasp. And do let me know in the comments, the problem which I should cover, and I will try and get into the thought process and the reasoning behind why that solution works and why it doesn't work. And many times I will also try and figure out the way to reach that solution from an intuitive way possible, basically. So once you see a problem, the kind of first solution which comes into mind, and how you can progress onto that path to reach the most optimum solution. So definitely let me know in the comments what other problems I should cover in Leetcode. Thank you.